Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we are talking about the imposter syndrome.
Dun dun dun.
Da-na-na-na, da-na-na.
This was a term that you had never heard before.
I had never heard this before. You're right. And which like, I mean, at one, somebody had brought it up. And yeah, somebody had brought it up in an email, I believe, or a comment or something. And I was like, oh, imposter syndrome. What's that? And I mean, of course, I think everybody's familiar with the imposter syndrome as well as many other things.
Yes.
But yeah, I had never heard the term. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? They have a term. I don't know why I was shocked. We have a term for absolutely everything, but
we do have a term for absolutely everything. Do you want to read the definition since you just set it up on your computer a minute ago?
Yeah, I'll pop it up here. Imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which one doubts one's accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Dun dun dun. So yeah, I mean that's a legit issue though, that a lot of people struggle with. And I think what's interesting is that I think that people, there are levels, right? I feel like there's probably a spectrum to imposter syndrome, because it says, a feeling of somebody doubting themselves, but then also like a chronic feel of being a fraud and none of your accomplishments being real. So I feel like those are two very broad things. So how do you know?
Like when I first read it, the first instinct I had is, isn't that being human? Like what, we want to have a podcast about being human. So, I mean, because it is so prevalent, I mean, everybody second guesses themselves. Everybody feels this to some degree. I mean, so I think it is part of our human condition as a general rule. But like you said, there's a spectrum of it. So we can, I think if it doesn't, this is actually interesting. I didn't know it was going to go this way, but I think there's a lot of things that are like this. I think we give too much credit to stuff a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I found this is a little exercise that's kind of helpful. And I've noticed that other people don't always do this. Like a lot of times when I come across something like this, where I go, oh, I'm second guessing myself. Like I'll stop and go, well, do other people second guess themselves? You're like, well, yeah. I mean, I've heard people talk about second guessing themselves. I mean, many times I've even heard very successful people say that they second guess themselves. Like, oh, well then if most other people are doing it, or a lot of people are doing it, and even successful people are doing it, then maybe that's just kind of part of being human, that we do this type of stuff. Oh, yeah, okay. And then once I put it into perspective like that, it's really not that big of a deal. I don't feed it. I don't think that there's something wrong with me because I'm doing it. And because of that, I don't let it hold me back from doing things. I just kind of accept it as part of the human condition and then just move forward anyway. It's kind of like, it's like courage, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. So this is kind of the same thing. There's all these little things in us that second guessing and stuff, and oh my god, am I good enough, am I a fraud, all that, like those are normal thought patterns that pop into everyone's head. So if we perceive it as that, it's just like, oh, okay. We don't put too much thought or power to it, then we just move on with our lives, and it just has less and less of a stranglehold on us because we feed it less and less. So that's one way we can interact with this or things like this. If it's not overwhelming, that's when it's kind of low on the spectrum, I guess. And we should probably discuss when it's bigger on the spectrum.
I would assume we should probably discuss when it's bigger on the spectrum. I would also venture to think that, and I think that you covered this in the episode of Ask Glenn Anything, where you answered this question from a listener. When you're actually committing fraud, and like when you're actually lying, and you're actually, right? There's a difference between feeling like you don't belong and like actually lying and about whatever, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong on that?
No, you're right. I mean, it's, we'll play hypothetical game. I suppose anything, if you feed it enough, like it's, if you feed it enough, it can get large enough where it's hard to differentiate that. If this is a gigantic problem, then when you're perceiving it, you probably think that, no, I really think I'm a fraud. But I think a good way to do it is to compare it to, lying, because that's truly fraudulent. If you say, well, I'm acting like I'm I just had a flash of like being a parent. I'm like, you want to know what the biggest fear, the biggest fraudulent, the biggest imposter syndrome is? Being a parent. Because, there's a part of us that think when you're a kid, when you look at a parent, you think that parents actually know what they're doing. Right? I mean, you think that they've been on this planet a long time. They know stuff that you don't know. And basically, you think that they know everything. And that's why sometimes kids can get so mad, like if a parent makes a mistake or deals with something wrong, because they expect them to deal with it right. So it's like, I mean, as a parent, it's like you completely feel like a imposter or a fraud because you have no idea what you're doing. Anybody that says they know what they're doing as a parent is full of crap, as far as I'm concerned. How could you? You were never a parent before. How could you possibly know what to do being a parent? Maybe after you raise 14 kids, you figured out a little rhythm and, but I mean, barring that, you're going to come in situations that you don't know what you're doing. And I embrace that, man. Like,
such a specific number.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're going to come into situations where you don't know what you're doing, and it's going to happen often. So, like, I embraced it, because very early on, I felt that, and I was like, oh my God. So I used to tell my son, I'm like, I heard this somewhere, but I used it a lot. I've never raised a 5-year-old boy before. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this situation. And I used to have conversations with him at 5. Hey, what do you think I should do? Well, geez, I don't know. Maybe we should do that. Like it was, and we'd have conversations about it at 5 years old. At 4 years old, at 8 years old, we'd have conversations. I didn't give the decision-making capability over to a 5-year-old. I mean, I'd ask him his opinion. I made the final call, but I think that's a big example of it. So we all go through this in a lot of different.
What's interesting about the thing that you're talking about with the children is that it never gets better because You
No.
just when you just when you think that you're getting a hang of like the 5-year-old, they turn 6,
Mhm.
and then a 6-year-old is completely different than a 5-year-old, and no one tells you that,
Right.
which is
Well,
insane.
people
Or
do tell you
they
that.
tell you
People
they
tell
do.
you and you don't listen because you
That's
don't
true,
understand,
because nobody, right,
and you could never comprehend.
and going through that, I think that in general, when we're kids, we think that adults in general know what they're doing. Even as adults, I feel like we think that other adults know what they're doing. You
Yeah,
know,
we give
more,
too much of our power away.
we give
It's
too much credit to other people. Like
Yeah,
we
and there's a subconscious thing about that, and like when you're, when you're in a position of power, like management or something like that, the people really do expect you. Their preconceived notion is that you know more than they do just by your sheer, stature to where you are. That's where it starts. I mean,
yeah.
after a while they can tear you down, of course. But like a lot of times when you're saying things, it's like, I learned this as a personal trainer. Like, one of the first things the guy said to me is like, you know more than they do when you're a personal trainer. That's why they're hiring you as a personal trainer. So if you don't know everything, just don't worry about it. You know more than they do. Just do the best you can. And this guy really didn't know that much. The guy that was training me, he really wasn't that great of a personal trainer, but he had a great personality, and he wasn't the most authentic. But that helped me, and so I tweaked it a little bit. And if somebody asked me a question that I didn't know, I'd be like, I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that. He would just make something up, but because nobody would ever know. And there's a lot of situations like that. I wanted to be more authentic than that, so I'd be like, oh, I'm not sure now, let me think about it, or let me get back to you on that, or something. I'll look it up and come back to you with an answer. You can do stuff like that, but people are, depending on where you are, what your job is, people are expecting you to know more than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay not to know everything and come back for an answer. And it's nobody has all the answers. I've evolved as a life coach now compared to 10 years ago. So what was I going to do? Not life coach 10 years ago?
No.
Because I'm not where I am today 10 years ago? Well, of course not. Does that mean I hurt people 10 years ago? No, I don't think so. I don't. I mean, you can do things to the best of your ability, even though you're not at a certain level, without screwing things up. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how most people are functioning. you know Most people out there doing their jobs and walking through life are not masters of their craft.
No, they're not.
No.
No. And sometimes even the people that are masters of their craft aren't
And
super
well,
confident in it.
right.
You
Yeah,
know?
confidence is something that just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that you have it.
Yeah.
Confidence is internal. So that's I think a lot of it is about taking a big step back and just putting it into perspective and understanding that no matter where you are, somebody else was there. Somebody else was there doing the same thing you're doing, and they made it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't, we're not going to know. We're just not going to know everything. We have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves.
So because of coronavirus, and I have no idea what the world will look like by the time people actually hear this episode, because it'll probably be a few months from when we're recording this. But because of coronavirus, I have had such an interesting perspective shift on imposter syndrome from both angles.
Mhm.
So basically, to make a very long story short, because Glenn moved to Florida and we had to switch the way that we recorded podcasts so that we could still do it together. We learned how to use Zoom way before, years before it was a household name, and because of that, some people that I have as clients in Rhode Island knew that, and they told other people that needed help. And then all of a sudden, I was getting phone calls from like the head of the state government, like agencies and stuff, asking for help. And I was like, so I had some huge imposter syndrome starting off with this of like, why am I being asked to do these things that are, above my station, essentially. And then also like we got to do some interviews with some really cool celebrities. And it was like, again, why am I having conversations with these people? This doesn't seem like it necessarily needed to happen. Like, what's happening? Am I actually good enough to be doing this, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the perspective shift of getting over that sort of imposter syndrome, because it happened very quickly. But
Yeah. Do you remember that text message I sent you?
I don't remember it.
You were like, there was, through little conversations and texts, every once in a while, you would say something about that. Like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Why did they want me?
I think I specifically said, does no one else in Rhode Island know how to do this?
Yeah, you said all kinds of stuff like that, and like I started picking up on a pattern, and of course there's an adjustment process, and I don't think I mentioned something right off the bat, but after a few, I was like, Ben, why not you?
Yeah.
Why not you? Like, you know what you're doing. You use this stuff. You're the perfect person for this. Stop doubting that. Why are they coming to you? Why shouldn't they come to you? Like, start looking at it like that. And it's like, I mean, you're capable of doing what they were asking, and whatever you hadn't done yet, you're capable of figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. And and I kind of say it like that because I think that's the part that we don't give ourselves credit for. We think we're supposed to know everything, and we can't. So it's like, so we know what we know, and that's a foundation. And then whatever we don't know, are we capable of finding it out and figuring it out and working through it? Yes. Okay, great. Then you're the person for the job.
Yep.
Because nobody knows everything.
And the cool thing was, now from the opposite side of that, is having the access to some people. You got to see them. I got to see them also have the same feelings, right? So I'm in these conversations before we go on camera of with these people, and talking to like the head of government agencies that are trying to, like, they're just earnestly trying to get people their unemployment checks, and like it's difficult and things are happening, and they're like, we're doing the best that we can, and so on and so forth. And talking to this guy who was a Reagan appointee and was served in the White House for years and years and years. And he was like, sometimes we don't know what the right move is right now. And then like, I've gotten to talk to a lot of priests who are having difficult times because their congregations aren't in person anymore right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had to deal with like losses of congregation members, and some really deep stuff. And it's not the fear it's not the situation of now. I think nobody knows what they're doing. But it's a lot more of, oh, just everybody has the same doubts.
Yeah, we're just all wandering around here trying to do the best we can, and nobody has it all figured out. That's why I try to be as authentic as I can. And do I want run around on Facebook every time I have a doubt and go, I'm doubting myself? No, I don't. because I don't want to feed it. But when I'm talking about stuff and when I'm working with my clients or when I'm on a podcast, I have no problem, saying that I have doubts. I don't doubt myself most of the time when I'm working. But that's just because of the way the information flows. So, but I mean, I have this whole personal life out there, and it's like, oh my God. I mean, there's plenty of times when I doubt myself. And I know that these podcasts aren't perfect. Like I know, but that's not my goal. My goal is to have them be authentic, not perfect, because they're perfectly authentic.
Yeah.
And that's all I can offer. And that's all any of us can offer. It's just be authentic. I mean, it's like I heard, I had major problems with public speaking before. And one of the things that I heard is like, if you've got a fear, just let everybody know. So there's been a few times in my past where I've walked up to microphones. I did it in front of like this middle school, gigantic auditorium filled audience once. And I hadn't spoken in a while and I had never spoken to kids and I didn't know what I was going to say. And I walked up to the microphone and I was like, boy, I haven't spoken in a while and I'm really nervous right now. And it just took the shame and the guilt away from it, And I think most of the times when you do stuff like that, people connect, they feel for you. They're like, oh, this person's real. Oh,
Yep.
this person's human. Oh, I felt like that too. And then all of a sudden, if I stutter or mess up or something or have to start over, they're like, well, cut him a break. He's nervous. Like it's really wonderful if we connect on a human level and show ourselves authentically, because anybody that makes fun of us or attacks us when we're being authentic, we don't need them. We don't need them in our lives. And I mean, and if it's in a job situation, I hate to say it. I mean, you might want to get out of that job situation. Because if somebody's that cruel, like to attack you, you might not need it. But I think the biggest thing is to know that everybody feels this stuff, and it's fear based. So if it's fear based, it's an amount of food. So if you feed the fear, you're never going to get over it. If you starve the fear and you feed something else, then it will diminish and take up less of you. So feed the things like everybody goes through. Everybody has these feelings. Feed the things that authenticity is what people can connect to. Feed the things, that like whatever I don't know, I can find out. And that's more important than pretending that I know everything. Like if somebody, it's almost like a pet peeve of mine. If somebody tells me that they don't know, but they'll find out, I'm completely fine with that. Completely fine. But when somebody starts telling me stuff and all of a sudden I'm picking up that like energetically, I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just saying stuff because they think that they're in power. Like I had this specifically, the last time I had this was when I was purchasing a cell phone. And I was changing my phone number, and I was getting a couple phones because I was changing my phone number and blah blah. And it was kind of a complicated situation. But I used to sell cell phones like 15 years ago. I have a vague idea of how the business works. So I was asking these questions, and all of a sudden I started picking up on this guy, and he's just going, "Oh no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, no, that's." And I'm like, really? And then I do it something else. No, it's not like that. It's like this. And I'm going, and I'm just getting this off feeling. And then I started throwing out stuff, and he just kind of blew right over. And I looked at him, I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. I was like, no, and I called for the manager. I was like, I can't I can't deal with this guy because he just wants to give me an answer. So he's in control of the conversation and he thinks he knows what's right. And he has no idea what he's talking about. That's the worst thing that you can do. You know, it will shoot you in the foot time and time again. So don't go that route. You know, if you don't know, own up to it and find out. You know?
I will not go that route.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you won't. But
did you like the wink? The wink implied that I will go that route.
Oh no, I don't think you will. I think you're past that with your authenticity.
I think that that's funny actually because I have a meeting after this where I'm so ill prepared for the meeting right now because I've been so busy all day doing other stuff, and yet I have the confidence now to know that I'm pretty sure whatever they ask me I'm going to be able to answer and come up with a solution of. But I'm happy that we just had this conversation because now it's just going to be a nice reminder to not just make up answers if you don't actually have them, which is nice.
Yeah, it's just, you know, nobody thinks that everybody has all the answers, you know.
No.
It's okay. It's, you know, everybody's had a first day of work.
Yep.
You know, so like I've told many clients that, like, oh, you're starting a new job. Okay, so your go-to is, hey, I just started. You know, and you know, I'll find out, because 90% of the time everybody goes, oh, okay. Why? Because they've all had that. They've all felt that, you know, they've all had a first day. So everybody knows how that is. They can relate because it's authentic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so just be authentically you and give yourself credit. I think that's the, you know, I'm just going to refer to another podcast that's kind of been coming up a lot lately. Be who you're becoming. That's an important part, you know, like give yourself time to get better at something, but also give yourself credit when you've gotten good at something. You know, be like, no, I actually know this stuff. Slowing down and just doing that is really helpful. And it's something that people don't do very often. They don't, you know, they're actually pretty good at things, and they're still so busy second guessing themselves that they don't even realize that they've gotten good at it somewhere along the way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So give yourself credit for what you've done multiple times in the steps. Look back and go, oh my God, remember that first day? I've only been here 3 months, and look at how far I've come. The first day, I didn't know anything. I was bumbling around here like an idiot. And now look at me. And it's only been 3 months. Wow, I understand this. You know, really give yourself credit, and then do it again, you know, monthly or every 3 months or 6 months, whatever. Just do it regularly, you know?
Yeah.
So there. Awesome. So did we cover it?
I think we covered it. You know, it's definitely, if you're real bad on the spectrum of imposter syndrome, I still think it's, you know, I think it's challenging no matter what, but I think that, you know, you gave a lot of great advice in this episode for how to deal with it. So
yeah, it is challenging, and it's, you know, if it's really a giant issue, then, you know, it's probably going to help to get some individualized help and really talk through it and get yourself into a place, because wherever you are, there's a way through it. Mm-hmm. Like if you're in a position you shouldn't be in, there's a way to handle that. If you know, if you actually are good at something but you just don't believe it, there's a process to get yourself confident in it. There's, you know, no matter where you are, you can get to where you want to be through this imposter syndrome. You know, you can get there. If it's really high on the spectrum, you might need to get a life coach. I know one that I recommend. It's this guy, Glenn Ambrose. He seems aight. He's aight. So you might check him out.
All right.
Or maybe Ben Barber.
I'm not a life coach. Um, all right. Well, if you, check out glenambrose.com if you want any info on any of that stuff. Also, you can pick up the book, Down to Earth Spiritual Being's Guide to a Happy Human Experience. And if you have questions for Glenn that you'd like him to ask, check it out. Ask Glenn Anything is an email exclusive Q&A show with new episodes every Friday. To join the mailing list, go to
You're reading the ticker.
glenambrose.com. Yes, I am reading the ticker. And also, we didn't mention this in the last podcast, but there's a live Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern on Facebook. Glenn Ambrose Life Coaching on Facebook and Glenn Ambrose on YouTube. So check those out.
I sure hope we're still doing it by the time this airs.
Oh, we
I
better
have no plan on stopping.
I don't
we
either.
Probably will be.
All right.
But yeah, so glenambrose.com. There's all kinds of neat stuff there. Get on my mailing list so you know about all the new stuff coming out, and hopefully the audio book will be out by the time you listen to this too. So check it all out. glenambrose.com. Be there or be square. Send me questions, podcast ideas, etc. And we'll talk with you soon.